3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Welcome to 2015. It is January 3rd. 2015. This is Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Coming to you currently live from Concord, New Hampshire, but pre-recorded everywhere else. You should certainly go to GraniteGrok.com if you're watching the live stream, or at Ustream.tv. Search Granite Grok, and you can watch the show right now. You'll see a room full of people sitting there waiting to have things to say, and let's talk about some of what's going to go on today. Slowly we lower the volume. A lot of things to talk about. Guy Comtois here is going to give us a legislative update. Susan Olson's going to give us an update on 2A issues, Second Amendment. We have bryan-demyanovich in, and a little bit later, Max Abramson's going to join us, New Hampshire House Rep. We're going to do our WTF. We're going to try to squeeze in a little bit of year in review thing in a top 20, maybe, if we can focus long enough to do that. And No, we're not going to focus. And please feel free, if you are not. If you are, you should go to iHeartRadio and iTunes and Stitcher and Spreaker and tune in and listen to this program.
And soon Google Plus. I haven't quite made it work yet for the live streaming and the recorded, but I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
I'm working on
That's
it.
That's good.
Make Ed flash, please.
Make it. Yeah, we want to do that because the Ustream has commercials, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those interrupt your experience. And we want to improve your experience.
Unless, of course,
or if we get enough donations to pay off the Ustream commercials.
yes, if we could get some donations.
Well, here's the
and
thing:
go
if we
pro,
could do it through Google Plus for free, then why waste the money?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So anyway, interesting year so far. The end of the year ended with a few issues that we could talk about. It's just if you missed the pre-show, we're covering a couple of things. Always looking for suggestions for the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot of the week. You can certainly tweet those to us at Granite Grok or use the hashtag Grok Talk. We've got a couple. We came up with a few, actually, even in the pre-show, like the DOT thing with the signs. That was one of the possibilities. And then, so it's just this never-ending flow of WTFs. In fact, without them, would we even have a show? You have to wonder.
Well, as Limbaugh frequently says, you can't make this stuff up. The Democrats and the RINOs between them provide nearly all of our script material. And every once in a while, a conservative does something bright enough and stunning enough that we're forced to fall down in amazement.
We're going to have a guest, Max Abramson, coming in later. The esteemed Democrat-elected Speaker Sean Jasper kicked him off a committee through the press, apparently, without actually telling him he was going to kick him off the committee.
Has he officially kicked him off at this point?
I believe he has, yes. So we'll have him in to talk about that as well. And, of course, those of you who don't know who Brian is, he's Jennifer Horn's pool guy. That's kind of what we've been calling him. He's actually much more than that, but we'll get into that when we have him on. But there's a story there that needs to be told, and we're going to tell it, and it's going to piss off a bunch of people, and we couldn't be happier. So, that's kind of what we do around here.
Because here in New Hampshire, it's all about bringing down the party. Long live the party.
Well,
it's time to start over.
The party stopped doing things that it should. All right, so Guy,
yes,
welcome back.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Guy, if you didn't know, is going to be doing regular legislative updates for us every week. We're going to try to do 10, 12 minutes and talk about what's going on that needs to be talked about right now. So, as our legislative liaison.
Yes.
How's it going over there?
Well, it's been, obviously with the holidays, it's been, kind of quiet, but, that Democrat-elected Speaker Jasper is, I guess, we've all been around long enough. How many leaders do you see that lead effectively that work completely at, vindictiveness? He's removing people off committees and putting them on committees that they didn't want just because, it's a vendetta. There was a representative out of Northwood that's been on criminal justice and public safety for 4 years, and He put in for it again, and he didn't get it. And when he saw Democrat elected Speaker Jasper, he asked, why am I not on my committee? And his only answer was, you know why, and walked away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know why. That's a perfectly acceptable response.
For a leader, yes. Yes. I mean, I've had, in business, I've had up to 30 guys on construction jobs that we needed to get done, and you needed to move right along. And there were a few there you did not like. But the last thing you want to do is start acting out of vengeance to slow up the job, to morale, the whole 9 yards. You just don't do it. When you have to get something done and you're a leader, you have to just move along and put a lot of things behind you. For instance, Al Baldessaro is up at the well a lot. He put him in the middle of a row so that he's got to go past quite a few people to get out. Intentionally put him there. And he's got a bad hip. He put in for an aisle seat because of a physical situation where he's got to get up and walk around a lot. And he intentionally stuck him in the middle of the row.
So is this the grounds for an ADA suit?
Well, he's going through some...
that's American with Disabilities Act.
He's going...
No accommodation by the Democrat-appointed or elected Speaker of the House. This could be... this is like us at Granite Rock. They just give us stuff to talk about.
Well, it's like, I'm the Speaker of the whole House, and we got to move on, and we have to do the people's business, and on and on and on. And it sounds like little petty stuff, but, when you're constantly doing something, it starts adding up. It never smooths things over. It never does. It never works. And like Max Abrams, Abrams removing him from that committee without even sitting down and having a talk with him. I guess he found out through the press. That,
it's going to be rather interesting because as much as he complained about Bill O'Brien, isn't he setting an even worse table with this?
Well, Bill just removed people after plenty of warnings, and they were disruptive. Not from the get-go. People were not plucked and moved around just because he can do it.
No, and I didn't mean that way, but I mean Jasper complained bitterly about the way that Bill ran the House, and now he's doing an even worse job.
Well, because it's all about him. It's not about the people's business. That's just a little, quick soundbite. Oh, we're going to do the people's business, and behind the scenes, it's just all vindictiveness. And he's just like we've talked before, his ego is huge, and it's all about him, and it's not going to help anything. I think you saw that interview on WMUR, right?
We did, yes.
And where there's just a few people on the fringe that are upset.
After slamming Bill O'Brien and trying to make out that Bill's support is vanishing, he then tried to sound conciliatory to conservatives, but his first actions in the House belie that. Well,
you read between the words with that interview. I've never voted against any existing gun rights. I like that one. First one I heard that. I said, there's a politician,
the original one. Yeah.
Right? For any existing, against any existing gun rights. So in other words, I've never voted to make them any better. You know what I mean? That's just a weasel word. And energy costs are low right now. Really? I guess he hasn't been looking at his electric bill because,
and in the beginning when McElvin was, I posted about that, and he came across as being very thin-skinned, very imperious at any suggestion that people would dare to stand up to him. And I said right then and there, this is going to be a long
2 years. You aren't kidding. You're exactly right. I'm not sure how he came across to other people because I know him. I don't know him personally. I don't like him. We've never talked, but I know him of him, his actions. But it's interesting to hear how he did come across from other people. But he did sit there very uncomfortable. He wasn't comfortable doing that interview.
Oh, no, he wasn't at all.
I think they sat him on a first grader seat, didn't they? Because
no, he was just sitting at the... He was very much... You could tell. He wanted to be there, but his body language was saying, I got to get out of here. It was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it was. And it was just, typical political rhetoric. I don't know how... I don't see the conservatives are not giving in on this because it's just a matter of principle, and for him to get up there and, well, say it's just a few in the fringe, so-called. It's not true. The few is like over 100. I thought few was like 3 or, several.
We're talking
was over
300
that.
million. Just over 100 is a few. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what is going to be first up on the plate as you guys are getting ready to hit the ground running now this week, right?
Well, first up on the plate is going to be the Rules Committee that he put himself in charge of.
With Chandler.
Right. And so all of that's got to come up for vote. Okay? And the fact that he only picked up 20% of the Republican votes to become Speaker, and then he appointed the Majority Leader, which that's going to be coming up. We picked our leader was Representative Bill O'Brien.
Well, can't you hold a vote for the Majority Leader, since the Democrats aren't allowed to vote for the Republican leader?
We can. Well, the fact that Bill O'Brien was chosen by the caucus to be the Majority Leader. What's going to be coming up is how could somebody, the Democrat-elected Speaker Jasper, who only picked up 20% of Republican votes, then how can he turn around and point the Republican leader when he was not put in by the Republicans? And that's the bone of contention right now, that we already chose a leader before we got into caucus.
Well, the double standard is that the Democrats duly elected their own leader, who was then confirmed as the minority leader, Stephen Shurtleff.
Right.
And yet the Democrat-appointed Speaker of the House, Jasper, decided not to let the Republican caucus have the same privilege of voting for their own. He duly appointed Mr. Flanagan as the majority leader. Now,
right. That's
fine.
Got trouble.
No, but if the Democrats get to vote for their leader, why shouldn't the Republicans get to vote for theirs, especially when they are the majority in the House? And that's really the problem.
That's the way things work when you do carry the majority of your party to achieve the speakership. So you would appoint then. But he did not. He only picked up 20% of his party. So it's kind of like, so how can you appoint a majority leader when you were not even close to a majority?
Yeah. Well, the corresponding thing in a look back is Bill O'Brien, when he was Speaker, allowed the caucus to elect its own majority leader.
Yes, he did. And the 20 seconds for second for a roll call, that's going to be coming up. His excuse there is it's too costly to do roll calls. And
what?
It's too costly to him, sure.
So
it's a button press.
Yes.
We've already got
it comes up on right now with that thing. I mean, within 5 minutes with the new computer system, 5 seconds. I'm sorry. Anybody watching knows how you voted. I mean, now I guess when you put stuff in the permanent,
did he actually use the words "too expensive"?
He used. He alluded to cost. Yes.
We definitely need to know that. If we could tell us how to run that down and find out, because that really is. I mean, it was a costly system to put in, but once it's in, all you need is the electricity to run it.
Right. And besides, the only thing it's too costly for is the taxpayers, because it'll allow them to get away with spending that we're not watching.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, there's only one reason why you would do that. There was only one reason why you would make it harder for a roll call vote, so that the folks back at home can put their representative's name next to the way they voted.
Yep.
And only one reason is because you don't want them to know how they voted.
And that's his first sop to the Democrats, because they hate being held accountable.
Yes.
Just like in the New Hampshire State Senate, the Republicans won't hold roll call votes. No. Sorry.
Well, if you're going to stand up for a roll call vote, you're going to be eating alone. As far as the state senate.
Yeah. Well,
you're going to be over in the corner with your little tray and your little cup.
High school all over again. You're not part of the clique.
No, exactly. They warn against roll calls. If you call a roll call, none of your legislation is going to get through.
Well, I'm hoping that a few new senators will form their own little micro caucus and say, screw you.
It might be worth not having your own legislation go through to make sure everybody knows how people are voting on legislation that does go through.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an important service
Yeah.
to the community.
Yeah.
And there should be. Is there any movement to make sure there's 20 seconds for every freaking vote that comes up?
Well, yes, we got to do it.
That was exactly what I was going to suggest.
And,
now more than ever.
Right. So you do have that. We had talked about that sheet. Put the bill number on, and you can sign, get signatures, so that the speaker doesn't just blow through the roll call when, call for roll call, and if everybody doesn't jump up, it's not sufficient second, no roll call. So you hand this sheet in, but you have to be in your assigned seats. So actually what it's going to do is it's going to make the day longer, because now you have to check around and see if 20 people in their assigned seats before you say the roll call is valid. And so it's going to make things even harder, because the sheet's going to be used all the time. Therefore, you got to look at the signatures. You got to scan the room. Got to make sure they're in their assigned seats. It's going to slow things up, other than the bing bang boom the roll calls used to be.
As that Chicago philosopher agitator once said, make them live up to their own rule book.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Susan Olson on a Second Amendment update, and this is Grok Talk, blah, blah, blah. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right, we are back. Welcome to Grok Talk. Thank you, Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and bloggers at granitegrok.com. We'd like to move into our second featured segment in the first segment of the program. Susan Olson, the esteemed Susan Olson.
You were looking for something there.
Here,
I'm not sure where you were going.
I wasn't even sure why I started going
I
there.
don't have any
I don't
idea.
know. We're gonna do Second Amendment issues real quick, and then we're gonna go to Brian. And so the new session is coming.
The new session is coming.
The new session is coming.
And what we had all hoped following the election in November is that common sense and intelligence and goodwill and truth in advertising we're going to hold in the New Hampshire legislature. But as Guy so clearly described to us, the new leader of the House has sort of changed that. Move back. Hello. It's that big head here. Yeah.
Go listen to the pre-show if you missed it.
Yeah. But nevertheless, there were, if anybody follows legislative service requests on the General Court website, if you're really bored or weird and you have nothing better to do and you sit home and you watch legislation.
I have a spreadsheet.
Do you?
I do.
Do you? We were looking at a number of legislative service requests, which are bills before they are born.
Preborn
bills. Yes, they are preborn. They are not personhood bills. They are preborn bills, and all they give you is a bit of an allusion to what the content might be, and you call them a marker. Well, there were a couple of them that were in that we expected. One from Catherine Rogers, Democrat of Concord, alleged attorney, who has introduced a new universal background check bill. We knew that was coming. A couple of other bills regarding firearms that are going to come up. I think there's a total of 6 that I saw that are going to be up. One on concealed carry. Yeah, constitutional carry. I was in a fight on concealed carry online with someone the other day. Difference between a permit, and a license, and all of that stuff. But constitutional carry. I believe there's going to be a bill in the House and in the Senate. I believe identically worded. which should be great. Yeah, and we've just come off of a months long fight with the Department of Safety on the whole pistol revolver application license process,
which we did cover.
Which we did cover, and the Earl of Sweeney has retired his crown and his mantle, and is retiring for the Department of Safety. So we don't know who's taking his seat.
Setting aside his robe and scepter.
Indeed. So we're going to be looking at that, because I believe in one of the constitutional carry bills, if not both, there is a reference to a pistol revolver application that set the standard by which most all of us were operating, that included a definition of suitable person as being one who was not a prohibited person by federal law, which is a bit circular. But in New Hampshire, when you start looking through statutes and trying to find definitions on which one can hang one's hat, they typically don't exist. So suitable person, there's not a definition of suitable person. There should be. There was on the back of that form for many years, but only by not being prohibited. It's much the same with what's the definition of a firearm. There is not. There in 159.1, a firearm is defined as a pistol or revolver with a barrel length less than 16 inches. But there's not a definition of firearm. So we've got all of this silliness in various parts of statutes regarding our inherent right of self-defense as codified and recognized by 2A of the New Hampshire Constitution and the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It's going to be
in fact, the constitutional version is you can carry whatever you want, wherever you want.
Pretty much. And one of the discussions on rules this Wednesday is the fact that legislators are going to be allowed, once again, to defend themselves.
Who quoted Murderer's Row? I read that this morning.
That was Miscellany Blue. The girls over at Miscellany Blue get their dresses all in a knot so many times.
Skirts. Oh, that's such a derogatory term.
Get their skirts in a.
It's an inside joke, folks.
Yes, they get their skirts in a knot. And so we have Murderer's Row there in the House, where we've got Al Baldessaro.
Which is, by the way, not just a microaggression, but a macroaggression.
It is a macroaggression. I think it's hate speech, quite frankly.
We might have to investigate that further.
I think it's hate speech.
Because not a single one of those people's ever even been charged with murder.
I don't think they have.
And now they've sullied their reputation by calling them murderers.
No.
Probably, so we'll have to get into that. Miscellany Blue.
I thought for a moment you were saying that skirt was hate speech, and I was thinking I've got to find a good acronym for it.
Skirt.
For skirt?
Well, skirt is hate speech.
You can skirt. It could be a verb, though.
We can go back to...
It can be a verb. It can be a noun.
We can go to Jennifer Horn's ascendancy to the NHGOP if we want to. We'll get to that.
Yeah, well, let's stop skirting the issue.
We're not going to skirt that issue now.
We cannot hide behind that skirt.
Roll call vote. That's skirting the responsibility.
Indeed. But interestingly enough, for the first time, I think, in history, or at least in recent history, all of the New Hampshire gun groups have decided to join forces and work together.
Cool.
That is unusual.
It is a great thing, and it was a little rocky to get us started, but we've had a couple of meetings, and we've all sat down and said, we understand why we're here and what we're doing, and we may have some individual issues with a particular piece of legislation, but the goal is the same: to defend and uphold our natural rights. So I think the legislature may be very surprised when they see Pro-Gun New Hampshire and New Hampshire Firearms Coalition and Gun Owners of New Hampshire and the Women's Defense League and Gun Rights Across America walk in together to testify on legislation. So there may be a new 2A day.
Well, it'd be like the same look on their faces when Custer ran into all those Indians for the first time we've been along, right?
Could be big old eyes like that. But it's that we've come to a point in New Hampshire that we have to seriously, formally join together to make sure that our elected leaders stop running over us. What does that say? We no longer have elected officials to whom we give our trust to do the right thing. They get elected, and then we've got to regroup on issue-specific areas to ensure that these...
Go ahead, say it.
Bastards.
Thank you.
Bastards.
Thank
you.
Don't sell their vote for that, seat at the table. And it's a bit disturbing. In a state like New Hampshire, where it's so small, you would think that it would be easier to accomplish things, but I fear that because it's so small, it's easier to have been overtaken by a few, including Papa Smurf. So on either side.
I find that strange, really, because the whole point of having a large number of legislators is that there's one close enough to you to reach out and choke on any given day, and yet somehow the people are not doing so.
Right, they're not.
Well, it hasn't gotten so bad yet. Okay, but it's getting there.
There's a few in my district that I seriously wonder why the district tolerates them.
Well, because they haven't hurt them bad enough.
No.
Yeah,
You get to a point you say, look, just leave me alone. If it doesn't bother me, leave me alone. I don't want to stick my head over the parapet.
Well, remember what
and
rule number
be
one
seen.
was? Politicians only respond to pain.
They do only respond to pain, which, by the way, there's going to be another one of our guerrilla training classes coming up, I hope, the end of January.
We'll have to advertise that.
We will be advertising that, and we hope that folks will show up and understand that no is a complete sentence.
And I think you'll also, we're beginning to see a bit of more of a, not just with the gun groups, but they're collating together. All the liberty and freedom groups are really kind of talking to each other and saying,
again, finally.
And saying, look, we have a common enemy, and he's supposed to be helping us. So we need to do something about that.
That's right. Each group has tried in turn to partner with what it presumed was a conservative Republican Party, and once again found out to its cost was not.
Yeah, well, it's the way it's always been, where you've got all these groups. They may be aligned philosophically as to the same goals, but here in New Hampshire we have all these curmudgeon-y conservatives that decide, I'm going to do it my way because your way stinks, even though the end goal is the same. As I've said before and written before, we saw that melding that you're talking about again happen before the 2010 election with the rise of the Tea Party groups, where they all said, let's put aside our differences, let's all work for a common good, because they saw the outrageousness that was happening, and they said, we are losing our liberties and we are losing our freedoms. And most people don't understand, tyranny does not come just at the end of a gun from an invading force or a police state. It comes from the point of a pen. They understood it then they kind of disintegrated with the internal squabbling, as historically has happened, and now, thanks to you, we're starting to see that coalition coming back together again.
All right, that's the end of the first segment. We'll be back with Bryan-Demyanovich. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Guy. This is Grok Talk. Stay tuned, 3 minutes. We'll be right back.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our health care coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Welcome to segment 2 of Grok Talk for January 3rd, 2015. I can say the year right, but when I write the year, I bet you I'm going to get it wrong all week. Because I go to work and I write the date, 1,500 times a day. So
don't we all?
It's still 2014. Oh, it's still 2014. Oh, man. Welcome back to Grok Talk. Thanks for tuning in and listening if you're on the podcast later on. iHeart, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, also on YouTube and Ustream. And again, thank you to the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, without whose generosity we would be doing this from someplace else.
Probably Liberty Studios up north.
Well, I already told you that wasn't going to happen. We'd have to do some technological mumbo-jumbo. And
So what else is new?
It might be broadcast from there, but we would be all over the place. So, anyway, thanks again to Guy Comtois for coming in to do his legislative update. Of course, Susan Olson's still with us, doing our 2A thing, and we're going to move on to our next segment. We have Bryan-Demyanovich with us, and rather than try to explain why he's here, I will let our guests describe the context, and then we'll go into details.
Well, it's interesting that that Guy actually gave us the lead-in when he says that when we have legislators saying one thing and doing something else, perhaps misrepresenting themselves philosophically into what they absolutely end up doing, I think that may be the whole focus of the situation in which Bryan finds himself. Now, those of you who saw his video from, early in the fall maybe, huh? Mm-hmm. When he was talking about finding himself the target of a lawsuit by New Hampshire GOP Chair Jennifer Horn, who is suing him for a deck that he didn't build that fell into her pool and damaged it. And it would seem, when one looks at the documentation, that after having not spoken to Mr. Demyanovich for 6 years following the construction of the pool and whatever else happened around the pool, she files a couple of claims with Bryan's insurance company to get some work done. And these insurance claims are denied, which insurance companies do anyway, but perhaps in this case, rightfully so. And because the insurance companies didn't cough up money to fix the problem, Ms. Horn turns to now re-elected Hillsborough County Attorney Dennis Hogan, or is it Brian Hogan? What's his name? Dennis Hogan, to file a lawsuit against Mr. Demyanovich and his company for something for which he is actually not responsible. Now, aside from allegedly supporting small businessmen and doing the right thing and following the law, it seems that this is a lawsuit that probably shouldn't have happened, but because it has, when one is involved in a lawsuit, and one is certainly the plaintiff, there are timelines in any lawsuit that must be followed in order for things to continue in the proper fashion and end up one way or the other, either in front of a jury, in mediation, or dismissed. Well, in the lawsuit, the state of New Hampshire judicial branch issued the structuring conference order earlier this year, and as is the case in a lawsuit, each side is allowed to ask questions of the other. They're called interrogatories.
Discovery.
Well, not yet. Not yet. That's part of discovery. But the interrogatories that each party was required to submit to the other were due on the 15th of November. Okay? Fine. Both parties
They
complied
gave me a
with
bunch
that.
of questions to answer. I had to answer them all, and I got them all in like I'm supposed to.
And then each party is given 30 days to then respond to those interrogatories. Okay? It seems as though the plaintiffs failed to respond to Mr. Demyanovich's interrogatories, and on the what date is this? Rather than wait for Ms. Horn to take her own sweet time or not to respond to the interrogatories, Mr. Demyanovich's attorney has filed a motion for conditional default, which says that the plaintiff in this case is in default by not following the court's rules and regulations. Now, all of that being said,
I still haven't got a response.
well, even beyond that, Brian, why is this happening to you? What? I mean, is it just that the insurance companies wouldn't pay up, and she comes to you for money, or what's the deal here?
Well,
in your opinion, what's the deal?
In my opinion, and I don't know their situation, financials and stuff like this here, but I have seen Jennifer Horn on the news, something to do with Channel 9 was saying that she was had some type of checking account and she could spend money for certain things, and then I guess she may have wrote out a few checks for herself, because I understand that they may be heavily in debt over something. But that was all over Channel 9. A couple of weeks later, you see Jennifer Horn on the news. She's in a soup kitchen passing out food to the homeless and stuff like this, So everybody looks at her like, oh, she's doing good to the community. But other than that, I didn't see any repercussions happen. But when I was there working on the job, I saw a lot of companies, construction guys, come in and they were terminated. Basically, I don't know what all the reason was, but they would do a certain amount of work there, and then the next thing you know, they're gone and somebody else is picking up the pieces where they left off. And my own experience working on the job was seeing this and also communicating with them, because the whole attitude on that job was they point and you do. They point and you do.
Well, that's not unreasonable. If you've hired someone to do a job and you expect them to do the job, and you're paying them to do the job, that's probably not unusual. But in this particular case, okay, because you've shared with us the documentation throughout this process, that the short version is that you're being sued,
right,
because water leaked out of her pool 6 or 7 years after you left the job.
Well, exactly. What happened is
and how could that happen? How could that water leak?
The only way you can lose water in a vinyl liner pool would be there has to be a hole in the liner. Otherwise, they stay full. It's just like this cup of coffee right here. This cup will stay full for days and weeks and weeks. But if I poke a hole in the bottom, the water level is going to drop and it's all going to leak out. In Jennifer Horn's case there, Bill and Jennifer Horn, I suspect that there was a hole in the liner someplace. I don't know if they ever had a diver or anybody come in and actually do a inspection of the liner.
Did you do any inspections of that liner?
No, actually what happened is when this pool got done, they owed me a lot of money. And I kept trying to get my money because they never had me open the pool, inspect the pool, never heard another call or anything from these people here. And all the time they were holding like well over $6,000 of my hard-earned money that I was entitled to, and they just wasn't paying. And this went on for a number of years. I'm trying to collect my money from these people here who say, oh, we want to do business with small business people. We want to help out the community, you see, but which are all really a bunch of crock. That's actually what it was. But the only way you can lose water in a swimming pool, the only way without actually pumping it out, is you have to break the membrane, the liner being the membrane. So in her case here, it was toward the winter time, and I don't know who she has hired to close their pool or winterize the pool or whatnot, or even if it was winterized. However, this particular season, it was well into the freeze, so there was several inches of ice across this pool. Now, ice is heavy too, and the pool is 40 feet by 20 feet wide. Now, I want you to picture, say, 8 or 9 inches of ice. This here probably weighs like 20 tons, so spanning the pool. Now, this is frozen, stuck to the side of the pools, and it's stuck, the cover that would go across the swimming pool would be frozen into the ice. Now, if you
in the pool?
Yeah, there'd be, see, ice floats.
Yep.
It won't sink, so ice always floats, and it needs the support of the water to stay floating. But if you have a cover across the pool and it dips into the water and it freezes, it actually freezes into the ice. Now, if you get 20 tons, 40,000 pounds of ice spanning 40 feet across the pool, and you drain all the water out from underneath of it, all of a sudden you're either going to get a warm day or something like this, and the ice is just going to go pow. I mean, that's really, really heavy. This particular time, too, there was an earthquake that took place from Maine, and I mean, I felt it in my living room, and it went all the way down. There's a fault line right down through Nashua, very close to where the horns are, too. So I suspect that the pool was leaking. It wasn't checked for leaks ahead of time.
Did they call you and ask you to come and check?
No, they've never ever contacted me whatsoever.
When you owe somebody $6,000, you don't call them.
Well, now, to be fair, Brian,
yeah.
you had to threaten them with a lawsuit to get that money. Is that right? A year
absolutely.
or so
I had to put a lawsuit in motion to get the money. In fact, she was running for election or something at that time, and she was on Channel 9.
She was running for the House.
She was running for the House.
U.S. House.
Yes. So what I did, and then I heard her say, "Oh, we support small businesses in the community, and we want to promote them, and we encourage people to work with small business." Well, when I saw that, and I know that I'm a small business, I mean, that was a slap in the face, and it was a big, bold-faced lie is what it was.
And all the construction companies you were talking about before, these are all small businesses, mom and pops, coming in and out that she was basically terminating after doing a little bit of work,
They would get some work, and next thing you know, they're down the road.
Yeah.
And so what happened here, I says, I had enough because I had been billing them. And I mean, I wasn't even billing for everything that I had done because they got an awful lot of work out of me that I'm entitled for pay, and I've never get paid for that. I didn't.
Why would you do that? Why would you? I know you're a nice guy.
I'm going to tell you why. Jennifer Horn promised that she would put her personal endorsement on my work if I do this and I do this. So I had discounted the cost. I did a lot of extras and stuff, but my payment was basically in the form of a personal endorsement because I know that she was an important figure in the community and stuff like this. And I mean,
was she doing a radio show then?
Yeah, she was. And she said she had a lot of listeners and stuff like this. And she says, you do this. And she says, I got a lot of followers. Once I put my personal endorsement on your work, Brian, she says, you're going to get all kinds of calls. You're going to get a lot of business. But, an average in-ground swimming pool is upward of $20,000. Okay.
Not cheap.
So if I could move 4 or 5 pools because Jennifer Horn says, hey, get Brian, take a look at our pool and see the work that's done. And, they hired me, and I did the very best work that I could possibly do up there. And the pool itself was absolutely perfect, state of the art. It really was. And I knew that they would be entertaining hundreds of guests because Bill said, I want this area to have a big house with a big patio, a changing room, all this other stuff, because they have a lot of pool parties, a lot of guests. Yep. He said, sometimes we'll throw parties, and there'll be 150 people here.
Yep, and Granite Rock was at one of those.
Did you go swimming?
No, not with electronics. But at one of the stakeouts that were held at their house.
So I'm thinking, right, I mean, how good does it get, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be working with celebrities and stuff like that. I mean, I actually wanted a showpiece. So I was under a contract with the Horns, and the Horns were under a contract with me. In the pool, in the early stages was designed to have a concrete patio, a one-piece concrete patio. And she actually signed a contract with Triad, which is an associate of mine, and they do beautiful work. I'm telling you, these guys are like the patio gods when it comes to putting work. They really are. They're a wonderful, wonderful company, and they're big. They employ about 100 people. So based on, and this was very important, and it was explained to the Horns that, what type of patio they're going to do, if they're going to have a cantilever, non-cantilever, one piece, because it all makes a difference when you're doing the engineered part of the pool and you're building it up to ground level to receive a patio. The pool needs to be built and designed a certain way to handle a concrete patio.
Did you design this for a concrete patio?
Well, yeah, it was agreed because she actually signed a contract with Triad to have an aggregate patio, which was a concrete solid piece, so that therefore the pool would be built up and compacted, and it would have deck bracing and so forth around the pool, and then there would be a wire mesh that goes around the pool and a certain bond, and the bonding's the electrical aspect of the pool that gets attached to the pool, but then it has to be attached to these wire grids. Triad came in to lay the patio down on this pool.
Is that after you were done or before you were done?
Yeah, the pool was 100% done. When I pull off the job, it's really 100% done, meaning without a patio. Because the
was
patio
there water in the pool when you left?
Oh yeah, they were using it, swimming, and the filter was running, and everything.
Without a deck?
You don't need a deck to have a pool. I mean, some people put wooden decks, some people just put flagstones around. There's no rule or regulation or anything that says you actually have to have a patio. Some people may just put little blocks that go around the pool. But if that's the case, the builder needs to know or keep in mind the design of this pool, what the homeowner intentions are. Well, her intentions was to have a concrete patio. But when Triad came in, she actually ordered them off the job. I guess he had talked to one of the contractors that was working there, just trying to, because she had other projects going on the property where they were going to need a concrete truck to come in and pour a foundation, like a footing for an addition they were putting on their house. But Dave, he's pretty good about foreseeing things, and he says, hey, if you need to get a concrete truck in here, I'd suggest you try to do it now, or I could hold off on the job a little bit so that you're not kind of painted into the corner, because once this patio was going to be down, there's no way to get a big concrete truck in the backyard. Well, Jennifer didn't like the fact that he spoke to one of her contractors without her being there, and she was irate, and that was the excuse that she told me to fire Dave and Triad. Well, she did, and then because the pool they were using it, and I tried to ask her who's going to do the patio. She said, well, we have somebody else. I said, well, could you at least give me a contact information or something? I said, it's important that we talk and communicate together what's going to be done. She says, well, I don't know the name. She says, my husband Bill's got the name. I'll get it to you, she says. But she never did get it to me, and I made several phone calls, and they just wasn't sharing that information with me as to what was happening.
So here we are. Here you are in December of 2013, and you're served with papers by the Horns for a pool that failed because the deck fell in.
That what happened is she hired somebody else to come in and do a paver patio around the pool, and they put these blocks all the way around the water's edge. Well, the pool wasn't designed for that. Okay, because it has deck bracing and different things. And I don't know the company who she hired to do this work, but what they did is they put some plywood down or something around the pool, and then they kind of glued these blocks on it all the way around the edge. And at another time when I had to come down there just to start that system, I had seen that they had already started to lay these blocks around the pool, and I says to her, I says, what? This here was supposed to be all a solid piece. She says, well, we can get pavers for the same price. I said, well, your pool wasn't designed for pavers. And I says, the other thing, I says, have you got an inspection on the pool? Because the electrical part has to be inspected when this wire mesh is down. Well, they didn't do this, and this company had already laid about 6 feet of patio all the way around. This is like 20 feet by 40, so there's literally over 1,000 square feet of patios, all pavers laid down in the ground, that had to be all removed so the electrical inspector could come and see the bonding, the wire. And then they started to blame me for this. They said, well, listen, I had asked you to give me the information, whoever's working on the pool, so that we can coordinate together. I mean, my electrician comes in, he bonds the pool, but the pool's not ready for an inspection until the patio guys come in and they do their things and attach the wire to theirs. Then the inspector comes in. Well, she circumvented all that. But what's worse is these blocks were setting on plywood. And when I went down to the job and I was walking near the edge of the pool, they were rocking. And saying, this is not good. These things are going to be falling into the pool. And some of them was all broke and chipped around the edges. Brand new. When they were a soft paver, they were very brittle and very, like
sandstone.
Yeah, they were inexpensive. I mean, you can get some pavers, you can hit them with a hammer, and those things won't break. And then you get some pavers, and you just go up there and just tap them, and they break. So it was really a low-grade paver. But the thing is, they were rocking, and these people, they never poured a skirt around the pool. So they would have had to pour a cement skirt all the way around, like dig down, perhaps 18 inches down near the pool and maybe 8 or 10 inches out. And go completely around the pool. I mean, I got pictures and stuff of how it's supposed to be done when you're going to do a paver patio. They didn't do that. So I never heard a word from these people, and all of a sudden I get a call from my insurance guy and says, hey, the Horns filed a claim against your insurance. And I asked for what? And they said the pool's got a lot of damage, and they said it failed, and they said it was all workmanship. It wasn't my workmanship. So what I suspect is these pavers and stuff has been falling into the pool and perhaps poked a hole in the liner, and then when the whole pool froze, the water was leaking, and you have all that ice suspended, and all of a sudden, maybe the earthquake or maybe just a warm day or whatever, and the ice just went pow, and it went down, and it was locked into the cover, and it dragged all the pavers and everything into the pool.
Have you
and crashed down. Now, I haven't seen the pool, but they're blaming me for the damage. Now, see, that pool was perfect. I didn't put that patio on that pool.
Well, when you came on Grok Talk for that interview, didn't you ask if anybody knew who built that deck to get hold of you? Did anybody contact you?
Yeah, nobody's contacted me. These guys haven't shared. One of my first questions I asked her in the interrogatories, I want to know who worked on the pool. I mean, really.
So you don't know that yet. They haven't answered.
Don't know who it is because they failed to answer, and here we are. We're in the second. What is it? The second or third day? Third day of January.
It's third day of January.
So,
it is.
I mean, the very, very latest that they possibly could have received my interrogatories would have been the 17th of December, and that's
you mean November?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
They had to respond in December, which they didn't.
They had to respond in December, but they didn't. But in November, I mean, really and truly, I think they had them on the 14th is what I think. But if you had snail mail or whatever, and today I understand that when attorneys are dealing together, they can use email because it's instant, it's quick, and, there's been modifications. So her attorney, I would suspect, would have got them instant, and then the formal hard copy, the paperwork would have went through the mail, but they wouldn't have got them any later than the 17th.
And that would have been Dennis Hogan, who is the county attorney.
Well, and let me ask you.
Well, you know what I feel? I feel like I'm being sued by the state of New Hampshire is how I feel, because here we have her in the House chair. Here we got the county attorney. Did you know? I guess in the state of New Hampshire, county attorneys, it's illegal for them to represent any private businesses at all.
Actually, only some are prohibited.
Only
the
some.
Hillsborough County attorney
Yeah.
is not prohibited from private practice.
So basically, it's like the state suing me. I mean, I feel like an ant fighting a jolly green giant, even though I'm fighting lies. And even if I go in and I point all this information, I have it all right here. I can prove that it's not my fault. Guess what happens?
Yeah. Now,
I still have to pay my attorney fees and everything.
Yeah.
I'll never get that money back.
Now, you asked a whole bunch of questions in these interrogatories.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you get any of those back? Any answers whatsoever?
Nothing. It was like talking to that door over there. I'm telling you, I got nothing back.
Wow.
Wow.
So we've got, and this is a bigger concern. I understand that this is
Oh, it's
horrible.
stressful. It's stressful.
Stressful. I understand that, but
This is my vacation time. I'm spending my vacation time worrying about a lawsuit that's like a malicious lawsuit. Don't pin this on me. Go after your patio guys.
Well, maybe they don't have.
They're the ones that broke the contract.
But a bigger point here, and I think Mike is the one that pointed this out to me, is the fact that we have here a law enforcement officer of the state of New Hampshire. I'm gonna let you go with that.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I was about to say is she's really being sued not by the state of New Hampshire, but by the Republican Party of New Hampshire, that party which says it is the party of entrepreneurship and small business. Because Dennis.
You mean he's being sued?
Yeah, yes. Because Dennis Hogan is a Republican, and Jennifer Horn is a Republican. So this seems to be a party affair here, and not a savory one.
Well, how can a county attorney who's charged with upholding the law, and this is me,
attack a citizen?
But if the guy has read the documents, okay, if he's read the documents, I've read them. I'm not an attorney. I've read the documents, and whoever built this deck or somebody else is responsible for the failure of this pool. So if this attorney knows that this could not have happened in the manner in which it's described in the lawsuit,
right?
What does that say? Now, I understand all lawyers think their clients are innocent, or maybe they all think they're guilty and they do it anyway.
2 minutes.
But the point is, how can the chief law enforcement officer of the county of Hillsborough now,
with clear conscience?
Well, I have a question, and it really comes down to...
Plus, he's getting paid $80,000 more or less to do the job.
The question I have is if none of the interrogatory questions were answered
right
by the person bringing the suit.
Right.
This is a complete bluff. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on Granite Rock or on Grok Talk or anywhere else. But, if you're bringing the suit, you know that this is going to come your way. And
but you've had Christmas.
But you
and the platform convention. And New Year's.
But wait a minute. It goes back to what you said to a degree about the malicious suit.
Yeah.
If you're not even going to bother to answer the questions and you bring a $65,000 suit, isn't this a big bluff waiting for them to wait for you to crack?
What does that say there at the bottom, Skip?
Notice to bryan-demyanovich, your pool pal LLC. If you do not comply with these requirements, you will be considered in default and the court may issue orders that affect you without your input.
Sure.
But what about the person bringing the suit?
The plaintiff.
To me, it sounds like they were out for the money, and when they saw that you weren't going to lay down, and do nothing, that you were going to fight this, they went, oops.
Well, now, isn't that maybe why they went to the insurance company first instead of contacting you?
Well, they went to... I had two insurance companies throughout the years, I stick with them. And I've never, ever had a claim.
Can we come back?
And guess what?
Yes.
They went, and both of them denied. So then they're coming after me. I don't know if they're going after patio guys or who else they're going after, but I know that I'm getting the blunt of this, and it's not righteous. It's just not justifiable. It's not honor. It's a bold-faced lie.
All right, well, we're out of time, Mike. Sorry. It's the end of the segment. And, Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
And we'll try to get you back in and see if we can squeeze some more of the story in there. Clearly, there's more to talk about. This is Grok Talk, blah, 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 as we screw up the segment by clicking the wrong button. I'll be right back. What? Go ahead. You can talk.
No, I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
All right. We'll be back with Max. Stay tuned.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jean Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, we are back for segment 3, January 3rd, 2015. This is Grok Talk, and Max isn't here yet. He has to come from the seacoast, and he always runs into issues with traffic and parking, so he may be along shortly. I'm going to get you guys started, and we can keep talking to Brian since he's here, and then I'll go see if I can find out what's up with him. But anyway, I'll give you my headset since I'm going to leave the room. How about that? So I'll turn everybody else's mics on. Yeah, keep on going.
All right. I'm going to throw in a quick squirrel run, then we'll get back to Brian. So anybody see the film of the holiday period? Knocking Off Nasty Norks for Fun and Profit?
No, not yet.
Yes.
No. Hang on.
It was quite funny, a little too rude in places, which I found was gratuitous, but I thought it was pretty funny nonetheless. Exposing, Potemkin shops and all the rest of it. It was.
I do want to go see American Sniper, though.
Yes.
I watched Team America.
That was funny. I liked that.
It was horrible. It was incredibly rude, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it was so bad it was great.
Which was banned by some movie chains because they were afraid they might become targets. Wussies. So I'm going to watch that one as well. But
I'm not going to enable Sony and them making money off a movie that's just crap.
Details.
But neither here nor there.
So while we're waiting for Max to show up,
yes.
and Steve's going out on a search and rescue mission, oh gosh, that gives me control of the board.
Oh, boy. So the short version is here.
Yeah.
We have a plaintiff who's filed a lawsuit demanding all certain types of things and information, and if you don't do this, then if you fail to comply, then the court may do this or that to you without your input, and then the plaintiff drops the paver.
Right, and
instead of the ball.
And
you've got a county attorney who may or may not know what's going on.
May not have known when the suit was filed, but I suspect that when he got the interrogatories, he may have had his eyes open. It would be interesting to get his private opinion, but I don't think I'm close enough to get that.
No, and in this kind of a case, he shouldn't until this lawsuit is completed.
But I read their interrogatories to Brian.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the attorney who was assisting in the preparation of the response to the interrogatories said the secretary must have written these. So either there wasn't a great deal of attention paid to the interrogatories submitted by the Horns to Brian, or the attorney was sufficiently wise to put it in someone else's hands to develop those. I don't know. These are all guesses. These are all suppositions. All we know is that after being denied by the insurance company for a claim resulting from something that you didn't build that damaged your pool.
People that I've talked to some knowledgeable people, and I've researched it and stuff like that. And nothing for nothing, she was on the news, and it really indicates that the Horns are desperate for some money. And that money's got to come someplace. They got to get it from someplace. So why not it be Bryan-Demyanovich from your pool pal? Yeah, why not squeeze him?
Well, and you see, they're obviously thinking, as Robin Hoods often do, we'll take the money from the insurance company. It doesn't really hurt the business. Well, of course it does. It puts your rates up.
It put my rates up, and I had to pay my insurance $500 just to investigate the thing. I'll never get that money back, and that's not right.
No, and your insurance premiums are going to be higher for the next few years at least. Regardless of how the lawsuit goes.
Well, they didn't pay out a claim. The claim was filed, but they didn't pay out, so I didn't actually draw off of this. So my rate should pretty much stay the same. At least I suspect that they would. Although I'm not sure either, because this year when I paid my insurance, it was $400 more money.
Yeah. So the rate did go up for whatever reason.
For
whatever reason.
Now, and again, I can come back to what I talked about earlier, just before we went on the break, which is if you're asking, and now added to what you said, asking questions of your interrogatory from the Horns to Brian, and the questions are kind of sketchy, having not read them, but they're not quite spot on.
Amateurish is what
amateurish is correct. Sketchy is pejorative. Amateurish, I think.
No, I meant it in an engineering standpoint. You know,
that's
when
right. You are an engineer.
Yeah, so it may kind of work, but not a what you said.
See,
but anyway,
you're an engineer.
Yeah,
a software engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
almost all of us are all techies in one way or the other.
Yeah, which is why I took the word sketchy to be one that has to be used with caution because it can allude to character, whereas amateurish just implies the secretary did it.
But it still comes back to my main point of were they bluffing? Because obviously I helped to videotape you earlier.
They
when
ain't
we
bluffing. I got the papers from the sheriff.
No. There's one thing to have gone through the process.
Yeah.
But when I found out that the interrogatory questions that your attorney sent to the Horns,
right,
and they did nothing, you do have to kind of wonder. Being a software engineer, you program the code to do the original purpose, right, and then you do what's called defensive programming all around that. Well, what if instead of doing the right answer, they do a wrong answer? And what if they do this and this and this? And a lot of code is written not to actually do what it's supposed to do, but to keep it from doing stuff it's not supposed to. Because, as fast as we try to idiot-proof our code, God's making more and more idiots. So
and they're running the Republican Party.
So this is the way I kind of looked at this and said, is this all a bluff in the first place? I don't know.
Is it a bluff or a shakedown?
And
that's a terrible term to use.
Or a combination of the two.
So let's assuming that there's no reason for it to be a shakedown per se, as in they're not. Brian's not officially on their enemies list.
It's not malevolent. It's just
it's not malevolent.
Pockets.
It looks like a case of, boy, are we in trouble, and now the pool's collapsed as well. Who's the deepest pocket connected with this pool?
What a pun!
It's not me. I'll tell you. I handle a lot of money, but my expenses are so tremendous.
It's the margins.
I keep almost nothing. I mean, really and truly, everybody's broke at different levels, but I keep almost nothing when I'm done at the end of the year. But I stay in business, and I employ some people, so they're working, they're paying taxes. It's all part of the support in the community. That's what small businesses do.
Right.
But to be defrauded out of your money.
And you put it exactly right, because what a lot of people don't get is that there's a profit.
Yeah.
And then there's a profit margin. Depending, you may be handling a whole lot. Yeah. Having run a small business, I know how much money came in. I also know how little profit there is. And when you look at businesses altogether, especially at the small business level, they're razor thin. So something like this, you've
especially
lost.
Right now, I'll tell you, when Obama got elected, before he got elected, I was doing 23 to 25 in-ground pools a year.
Wow.
And Obama got in, and my pools went to 5, only 5. The next year I did 6 pools. I had depleted all my resources, any money that I did just to keep my business afloat. My accountant doesn't even know how I did it. Then I did 9 pools. Now, she files this lawsuit. I only had 11 pools under my belt at the end of the year. I've gone from 25 pools on the average yearly before Obama.
Half.
And this year here, I've only done 12. So I'm just barely staying in there. You follow me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can't take a hit like this for crying out loud. But, one thing is, if it was something that I did of my workmanship, I am a man of honor, and I would be down there taking care of it without going through my insurances, and I would be apologizing, humbled and stuff. Now, I've built pools for attorneys. I built a pool for a very good attorney over in Sandown. I don't want to mention his name and stuff, but I mean, I had forewarned him about an issue, a rain issue in water and stuff, and he assured me he was going to put in certain drainage around the pool. Well, he didn't do it that year. He waited to the following year, which he was supposed to do it that year, but he didn't, and he knew. And the water got down in between the pool and the house, and it makes the ground super saturated. Well, if you get anything super saturated, you get sinkholes and stuff. Just like on the highways and the roads, you see it all the time. Cars are falling in because the ground's super saturated and things move. Well, the bottom cracked in the swimming pool, and he called me. When he told me, I let him know that it wasn't my fault. I let him know the cause of it, but I says, I'm in a position to take care of this. All I'll ask you to do, you might have to buy a load of water or something. I went down there, I took care of this in one day. He says, something, Brian? He says, I was hoping that that's what you would say. And that's what I did, because I'm a man of honor. I mean, I could do that. And from that, I generated 3 jobs from that guy, just because I went out on a limb and I could take care of that with short money out of my pocket.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break here and bring Max Abramson in. He's in the room, 60 seconds or so maybe. I don't know. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Little rock organ for Skip. Welcome back to Grok Talk, brought to you by granitegrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. You can visit us at granitegrok.com. You can visit them at cnht.org, and please do that. Hit the tip jar, hit the donate button, help out your local grassroots activists in New Hampshire. We're going to move on to a slightly shortened segment with Max Abramson, who has had an interesting week.
That's putting it lightly.
An understatement. Tell us about your interesting week, Max.
It started with a series of phone calls, 3 or 4 phone calls a day from news reporters, interviews. Then I started getting a pretty good series of emails and contacts and personal messages. Some were from fellow state reps, some were from friends and neighbors, but most of it was from the news media. Asking me, the Speaker of the House is very surprised to find that you have this prior self-defense case and prior conviction, and I had been appointed to the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, which was my first choice. Now, there's a story behind that story that a lot of people have missed and a lot of journalists didn't know about. We've had a lot of senior Republicans pulled off of their committees, their committee assignments. And, in fact, from the Criminal Justice Committees, Representative Gagne and Tasker were both pulled, and that's an unprecedented act. Even Terry Norelli didn't do things like that. It's almost unheard of to have state representatives.
Kyle's got to be pissed.
No, he's not happy with it.
Oh, my God. I would never want to make him mad at me. I mean, I have. That's why I know. But, anyway. So...
Representative Bates has been removed from the Elections Committee, who
Uh-oh.
was the former chair.
We had Guy Comtoyan telling us about a couple of those examples, but we didn't have all the time for that much detail. Yeah.
Representative Ober's been removed from county and local, and a number of other people have just been pulled, and they weren't notified, they weren't asked, they were simply pulled.
This is Lynn Ober?
I think Russell Ober.
Okay.
Yeah, because wasn't Lynn Ober a vice chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So,
oh boy,
there have been many experienced senior Republicans, and a lot of voters, including independent voters, are now asking, well, why are they taking all this expertise off? Is this politically motivated? And so now all of that has culminated in Jasper removing me from the Criminal Justice Committee. Now, I received a message from Jasper himself last night via Facebook. And he said,
the chosen choice for communicating with your reps.
the way that I found out about this wasn't from Jasper's office. Mm-hmm. I received a phone call yesterday afternoon after all the news media had been contacted by press release, of Friday afternoon press release, and we'll let the listeners decide whether or not this was contact. I received a phone call. This was the first notice that I'd been removed from that committee. It was Friday afternoon that I started getting calls from reporters again asking me what my reaction was to being removed from that committee. It's a committee I've been testifying in front of as a private citizen for 10 years. I've been very active in criminal justice reform issues for many years, wrongful convictions, prosecutorial misconduct, forensic issues for a very long time, and self-defense issues. And I even have a bill in, which has not been given a bill number yet, but it's to simplify the two definitions. There are two conflicting definitions for deadly force in New Hampshire. And they're both subjective, they're both open to interpretation, and they frequently conflict with each other. And so emergency responders and private citizens can have a hard time and might hesitate in the event of a real emergency if they have to act in an emergency to stop some danger or some dangerous criminal or some emergency from getting out of hand. Almost anything that you do could be twisted around by the prosecutor to mean deadly force. And if you get convicted, which I did in my self-defense case, there's no way to figure out whether the jury thought that I'd used deadly force or non-deadly force. There's no evidence from the witnesses to suggest that I did either one, but there's no way to put those two definitions together. So those self-defense issues were issues that need to be brought forward because that gets to your basic fundamental right to survive and your right to be free from crime. I've been a long time spokesman for the idea that government should first do no harm. The criminal justice system in particular should first do no harm. Shouldn't make crime worse, which a lot of prosecutors are just singling people out, and especially if they've acted lawfully in self-defense to stop a crime, as I did. And the problem is that Jasper's office contacted the press. They didn't even CC me a press release. And Jasper contacted me afterwards at, I think, 9:30 last night. And he told me, well, we did contact you. That was that canceled meeting. That's what that was going to be about. And again, we'll let the listeners decide if that's contact or not. But I never received a phone call, not an email, not a message.
So all they did is they set up a meeting, which we knew about, and then we were going to talk about the meeting today. And so they just canceled the meeting. Didn't tell you why they canceled the meeting. They just canceled the meeting, and then...
Well, no, to be fair, I canceled the meeting.
Oh, okay.
And here's the reason. I had a tremendous number of senior state reps and people who've dealt with Jasper and representatives from all over the state. And they warned me, many times, do not go into that meeting alone because it will be the three of them and just you, and afterwards it'll be your word against theirs, and they'll be able to just make up anything that they want to. Yeah. Now, to be fair, I don't know Sean Jasper, and I'm not going to say that he's dishonest or would do anything dishonest, but I've had so many people who've worked with him over the years tell me and warn me that he doesn't have any integrity.
And this is one reason.
Was this going to be a one-on-one meeting, Max?
A 1-on-3 meeting.
See,
three of his henchmen?
Well, Jasper, his attorney, House counsel, and one of his guys.
Oh, that would be, no, not Ed Mosca, but Chuck Douglas. You know, here's the thing. When you say his word against my word, you always bring one of those things with you. Always a camera. And you say, if you can't say it on camera, then there's something wrong.
I would have brought Al Baldassare with me if I had the choice.
Well, yeah, that's another. but serious, something like that. They're not. They don't like it. They probably would have canceled the meeting. But you know, we are hearing the vengeance, the retribution, and all of that. The Democrat-appointed Speaker of the House, Sean Jasper, is living up to every single low expectation. You know, most people set a high bar to jump over. We put ours low to see if he can go underneath. And that's working. It's working.
Well,
some sort of breaking into song about friends in low places or something?
No, I'm not singing today. Thank you.
Well, we have to be clear. It's Democratic House leadership. It's not your average Democratic state representative. Now, there are a lot of Democrats who are left-leaning and they just see the world differently, and a lot of them are there to serve, and they've come from, you know, politically liberal or Democrat-leaning districts, and, you know, we're working across the aisle with a good number of them. But it's House leadership. It's a Democratic leadership that really made that backroom deal on the morning of the organizational meeting.
Yeah, it's here. Somebody's pulling the strings. And, you know, we had the talk earlier with Guy Comtois about the rule of calling for a roll vote and having to have 20 people second the motion and do it in a hurry, so it has to be almost pre-planned. Again, for the accountability. We know Democrats don't like the accountability. You know, they love the dark shadows. They hate the bright flashlights. So this is just another case that, you know, the question can be asked. Did he remove you just because, or was he asked to remove you for whatever reason? I mean, you came out with a litany of other names. Who's pulling those names? Who's actually saying, well, we don't want this person here, don't this person here, this person, you know, get rid of them? Is he acting with respect to the majority caucus or the Democrat caucus? Who's pulling the strings? Who's the Rasputin behind the throne? Ta-dum!
And no one knows. And the problem is, even sitting as state representatives in Representatives Hall, sitting in our chairs, you know, we have the Republican caucus. Of course, I can't, and the House Republican Alliance caucus. We can't discuss what was discussed in those meetings, but you can probably guess. But the Democratic caucus caucus is exempt from the right to know law, as long as it's all members of one party who are there discussing strategy. Now, at the Democratic caucus, Jasper himself was there. Probably a number of his other people were there. So that was a bipartisan caucus where they're making decisions that affect everyone in the state.
Roll that back again, please.
So there's an exemption to the right to know law. The right to know law says that public policy decisions must be made in public if it affects taxes, spending, crime, criminal justice reform, right to bear arms, due process, health care.
And we get this separate caucus bit, but now what's that bit about bipartisan?
So, well, Jasper ran as a Republican.
Yeah.
So when he goes to the Democratic caucus and they're making these deals and having their little talk, that's no longer a partisan caucus. That's no longer a strategy meeting. Now that is something that must be, according to some people's interpretation of the right to know law, must be made public.
Ooh.
And there's an angle to that. If someone requests that, if any private citizen in New Hampshire were to request the minutes of that and the details of that, that's all supposed to be public. The meeting itself, if it was a bipartisan meeting to discuss public policy, it really should have been something that was made public to everyone in the state, not something that was kept secret as a partisan caucus.
And they know he was there.
We know for a fact that he was there because he was, well, Democratic representatives told us he was there talking to them. And the party leadership.
We need to get names. We need names.
Yeah, because we'd be happy to, as private citizens, file a right to know request for the contents of the meeting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even I don't expect to get them,
Nope.
but I certainly expect that if we apply enough pressure, the press will report it.
Well, the other thing I want to do a request of is, the majority leader's office, or whatever it's called, the Republican majority office under Democrat-appointed Speaker Sean Jasper, put out a list of here's what we want to do. And one of them was cutting the size of government. Well, what's your baseline? How are you going to say, here's your starting point, here's your end point? Have they explained that to you as being part of the Republican caucus? Did they actually say, here's how we'll measure this? So at the end of the session, it can actually be substantiated. Well, we cut government because here's what it was before, here's what it is now.
Until it shows up in the press. They don't actually talk to him.
That's interesting because Bill O'Brien sometimes gets a little bit of flack and a little bit of elbow in the shoulder for talking about details of details. He's always talking about budgetary numbers and little facts and details that are important, but, he doesn't give the nice, simple message. If you look at your bottle of Mountain Dew, the front is, that's what consumers see. They see Mountain Dew. Actually, I didn't realize they cut down the number of letters, but they send a very simple message so that you recognize it immediately. Marketers, advertisers, they send a very simple, oversimplified message. Very few people turn the bottle around and sit there and look at the list of ingredients. Bill O'Brien gets into the list of ingredients.
And I'll go ahead. Maybe I'll get lucky and Pepsi will send me some money. I doubt it, but that's all right. Even though I'm not drinking nearly as much, or hardly any as much as what I used to. Anyways, but those are the kinds of things that we need to know about, the public needs to know about. And I'm seeing this curtain of obscurity starting to fall. Why were these changes made to personnel on different committees? Why is the rules changing? Who is, again, I hate to keep putting it this way, but who's pulling the strings?
So weren't there a set of committee assignments that were published, and are these changes to that published set?
No, they're just taking people that have been on those committees for years and yanking them off, basically pulling all the experienced Republicans out of these committees. They're not pulling experienced Democrats out, correct?
Correct.
So basically this is a give to the Democrats. They're going to give all the experienced people who are Democrats, they're going to let them basically take over because...
Yeah. So who are the Republicans being replaced by? Is it more Democrats or is it wishy-washy Jasper supporting Republicans, the sort that became majority leader?
There were a couple of A reps, but we've also got some reps. The HRA, House Republican Alliance. It's 118 votes every session that are on Republican platform issues. Speck Bowers, Bill O'Brien, and a number of others have tracked certain bills that track with the Republican.
And we use those rates all the time.
And a handful of the recent appointees have A records, but the vast majority of them are 50, 60, 70% voting with, other than business issues, they're voting with the Democrats more often than the Republicans.
And they complain about us for pointing this out. Gee whiz.
Well, interestingly enough, Guy was saying that Mr. Speaker stated or alluded to cost in terms of roll call votes and trying to lessen those because it costs so much money to do a roll call vote. Well, if people with experience, subject matter experience in a committee, have been taken off of that committee and replaced with someone less informed, been placed on a committee where they do not have subject matter experience, what's the learning curve involved here, and what does that do in terms of time lost? Does it, one, give new people a chance to cross-train, if you will, or does it allow them to be run roughshod by people who say, look, we've done this, 2 years ago we did this, Bill, and we've done this, and move on?
We're going to take 60 seconds and come back with Max. We're not going to do a full break. We'll be right back. Hang on.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Oh, more rock auger. Yes, we are back. We are Grok Talk, a production of GraniteRock.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative, libertarian political blog site, where we just love to annoy people because they've asked for it, frankly spoken. We are here. This is the first Saturday in January. We are continuing Grok Talk, and it's been a very full show so far. We are talking with Max Abrams right now about his kerfuffle, which behind the scenes we understand that strings are being pulled, and the Democrat-appointed Speaker of the House, New Hampshire House, Sean Jasper, is getting pulled. But you got pulled from a committee, and you're telling us about other stuff. And really, we've kind of delved into some other stuff, and this is a great topic because this is the internal workings of the sausage factory, and that's something political junkies are very familiar with. We know how this goes, and we're always eager to find out about it. But we wish more ordinary citizens who basically believe government is something we shouldn't have to worry about at all. Guys, you got to start worrying about it because stuff's happening. And I want to say thanks to Max for bringing some of this to us. But Susan, you've got a question.
Well, no, it's a continuation of that thought, in that if Mr. Speaker is concerned about wasting money in roll call votes, why is he not also equally concerned about wasting money by not allowing the people's representatives to use their talents to the very best effort? So if I've elected a representative, and partly because I know that he's a fiscal expert, or he's an education expert, or he's, in my case, a Second Amendment expert or constitutional expert, and he's put on the doily-making committee, is that not an insult to his intelligence and an insult to the trust that I've put in this person who's told me that I'm going to go and make a difference because I can contribute freely my expertise to the process? I think it's cheating New Hampshire voters, and I think it's incredibly dishonest. And I know one representative who works full-time, who, by the grace of God and a wonderful employer, lets him go to session day and to his committee day, pulled from that committee and now put on a committee that meets twice a week plus session day. So he's either going to have to miss one day of committee work, or he's going to have to quit his job, or he's going to have to leave the house. These are untenable positions for people to have been placed in by someone who may or may not have our best interests at heart. So,
and
rant number 2 done.
But it's also a fact of, are you nudging from the Republican majority, the control of that, which is what the voters wanted, and behind the scenes, behind the locked doors, in the dark corners, moving that control back to the Democrats? Is that the quid pro quo?
Absolutely.
Behind the whole process of electing Sean Jasper by the Democrats? Max.
And on that point, some of these things that are happening that are coming out of the Speaker's office, and now the Rules Committee, appointed by the Speaker also, are things that even Terry Norelli, a very liberal Democrat who's famous for being heavy-handed and appointing heavy-handed chairs, would never have done. And the things that are coming out of that Speaker's office right now, they have shown a pattern of the things that Democratic leadership has been trying to get for years. And every single time there's a dispute on some issue, they are taking the side of the Democrats.
We
Democratic
need
leadership.
a list, a specific list, because if this is being done behind the scenes, and we know the liberal media here in New Hampshire isn't going to report on this sausage making, we need somebody like you or somebody else that you know to bring that to us, and we'll get it out to the conservative side of the wing, because, frankly, there's nothing they can do to us. Basically, we are the watchdogs. We are the guys with the big flashlights, and this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to plug our own horn here for a second. No, not that other horn we've been talking about earlier.
Toot.
Yes.
Toot our own horn. That one needs plugging.
I will tell you, over the last few months, I have been getting more and more emails and calls for people thanking us for what we blog about at Granite Grok, because nobody else is. We can't, the comments come in, the emails come in, the calls come into the house. I'm finding myself more on the phone than I am at the keyboard nowadays. There's a message to liberal media. There's a need for this. We are just volunteers who do this after our regular day jobs. And if we're getting this, imagine what you guys who get paid for doing this could be doing instead of what you're doing. To expose what's going on, and you're not doing it. And I really I'm beside myself to say, why is it that a bunch of techies with a little old blog site are reporting on stuff or going after stories that you guys should be doing all the time? And I want to say thanks to you, Brian, and to you, Max, for bringing this stuff to us so we can get it out to our readers, listeners, and watchers, because nobody else is doing this.
If I can, on the previous point, Bill O'Brien, the elected House Majority Leader, send out an email to all of the reps and to everyone on the list saying, if the Speaker were removing a Democratic member of any committee for any reason, they would bring in the elected Democratic Majority Leader to have a discussion, have a powwow, and that Democratic Minority Leader would be expected to take the side of the Democratic representative. So how can a Speaker of the House who's been picked by Democratic leadership now take the position that he can just pull someone off without speaking to our elected House Majority Leader?
Indeed.
That's a problem. The second problem that I have with this is people have been talking about criminal justice reform in the last few years more and more. I have two constituents, Sean Kelly and Sean Bedard, from my district, who are serving time in jail right now. I've just spoken with the family of Sean Kelly, and the prosecutor, also working under Patricia Conway, who's now the Rockingham County Attorney. She ran as a Republican, despite the fact that I don't know that she's ever registered as a Republican in her whole life, except right before. She hardly ever votes. She registered right before the election. That's a whole other story. She's prosecuted a lot of conservative Republicans who are elected officials, including a couple of other state representatives and selectmen and budget committee members. But in the Sean Kelly case, there's a full-length video from the police officer's dash cam that shows Sean Kelly looking up after this car accident, and he's clearly awake. That's not the video that was shown. The prosecutor cut that video, and the jury wasn't allowed to see the moment when Sean Kelly looks up and is clearly not only awake but alert. So what the jury saw was this kind of very short, edited little snippet that makes it look like he's asleep at the wheel, and it's completely dishonest. Or the Sean Bedard case, which was just as bad. Patricia Conway was the prosecutor in that case also, and she lied through that entire case also. She brought forward a witness who testifies all the time in court against men she doesn't like. And Sean Bedard's now serving 7 to 15 years in prison for a crime that he almost certainly didn't commit. And there was as far as I watched most of that trial in person, I don't think I saw any evidence to corroborate anything that this woman was saying. And what the jury was not allowed to know is, because this woman hasn't been charged with perjury by the county attorney's office, this witness, this false accuser, is able to testify over and over and over again. And juries are not allowed to know about actions like that. There's another similar case where a father, not in my district, a father has been convicted based on the false accusations of his daughter, and his daughter has come forward and admitted that she lied on the stand, but because she can't be prosecuted for perjury, because she can't get convicted for perjury, the father can't get a new trial, even though the one accuser has finally come forward and admitted that she did lie about it. This man's in prison right now.
So your not being able to be on the committee to help kind of right these wrongs, it hamstrings all of us. But it also means that the status quo, which obviously is more amenable to the Democrats than it is to the Republicans, with these kinds of techniques, he's padding the committee in certain ways. Jasper.
It certainly looks that way.
And we're seeing this over and over and over again with all the committees, yes?
Correct.
Yikes. So the question is who else is complaining?
So basically the Democrats own his ass, and they're in danger of owning the House.
Well, we have to give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
We don't.
We should give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
No.
This is not a court of law. This is a court of opinion. But,
yes.
Yours is welcome too.
Yes, he actually has to sit in the House, so let him finish.
Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely been a pattern from the Speaker's office from day one. Now, the Democrats get to elect their majority leader or their minority leader, and whoever they've elected, I believe it's Shurtleff.
Deputy Dog.
They get to elect theirs. He represents their members. Not a single Democrat, as far as I know, out of 160 Democrats, not one single Democrat has been pulled from their committee. It's only senior Republicans. Now, there's been this pattern that more and more people are noticing and more people are asking about, and now because Jasper's office has pulled me out of Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, this is becoming a story that the Concord Monitor has heard about, WMUR has heard about now. I don't know if you saw the interview that I had, but that was about a 10-minute long interview, and they had to cut out, the Chad Evans case. Chad Evans is serving life in prison for a murder he couldn't possibly have committed because he wasn't even present when Cassidy Bortner sustained the injuries that led to her death. And so now we have a House resolution to put forward that I wanted to discuss on criminal justice, asking the Department of Justice to look into the details of that case.
Certainly sounds like a big PR oopsies in the making, because this is only going to come back on Jasper big time, because he's basically showing us what his reputation has been all the time. And now that we see, I'm glad to see that you've been interviewed by the media. Kudos to them for doing this, bringing their spotlights to it, because now hopefully their itch has been scratched and they're going, oh, more stories. And, he's going to be in an untenable situation, even though, he's going to take it from the right and the Republicans for being the Democrat-appointed Speaker. But now the liberals are going to look at him. Oh, he's still a Republican. Let's go get him. So he's got two barrels of a shotgun looking at him now.
Other state reps have heard two prominent Democrats. This is why I say Democratic leadership. It's not the average rank-and-file, Harper's reading Democratic representative, including people who've been drinking the Kool-Aid. It's Democratic leadership. I've already had a number of Republican state representatives say that they've heard prominent Democrat leaders telling Jasper that he'd better remember who works for.
Steve,
well,
you're sitting there going.
Is anybody surprised by any of this?
No.
Anybody?
Who's willing to wear a look-see into the House?
What is a look-see?
You can just Google it. Really.
Well, no, they're not selling it on the market. They've changed their focus.
Yeah, but you can still Google it and find out what it is.
I've got one.
So, anyway, yeah.
But yeah.
You just signed up for Project Veritas, Grokstock.
One of the quite often on Grok Talk, the week's worth of work, whatever it might be, the blogs and all that stuff, is kind of what drives the conversation on the program. Now, in this particular show, which is our first show of 2015, it seems to me that the conversation is going to be driving a lot of blog posts.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
So this is a good thing.
One of the biggest problems is, even though you have a constitutional right to get all of the evidence in a criminal case, the New Hampshire Supreme Court has said, no, if the trial judge wants to keep it out, they can keep it out. The 200 pages of criminal records on the criminals in my home, the woman chasing my housemate with a hatchet, yelling that she's going to kill him for calling the police, the machete, some of the bloody towels, that evidence was kept out. And if witnesses don't show up in your favor, they just don't show up. In the Chad Evans case, again, the jury was not allowed to hear that the babysitter, who was not only a major dope fiend, the babysitter, who's the only person who's with Cassidy Bortner at the time that she sustains the injuries that presumably led to her death. 2 days before her death, she's dropped out of a pickup truck on her head onto the pavement. 2 days before, not a small one, drops 2 feet straight down onto the pavement and sustained, severe injuries. And that may have been a contributing factor in her death. The jury was never allowed to know about that. The jury wasn't allowed to know that the babysitter, Jerry Marshall, was also close friends with one of the investigating police officers. So you have all of these open questions in the Chad Evans case that need to be brought in. You have all of this evidence that is kept out of criminal trials. The Sean Bedard case, the Sean Kelly case, the Robert Breest case. He's finally being given a hearing by the New Hampshire Supreme Court. He's served 40 years in prison for a crime that he's maintained
40?
his innocence. Yes. Since 1972, he's been in prison. He's now over 70 years old, and he's getting on in years. And finally, there's DNA evidence. They're finally going to allow him to have a hearing. They haven't even allowed him to have a trial. He has to go to the hearing and have the court look at the evidence to determine whether or not it's good enough to give him a new trial. He's been in prison for 40 years for a triple homicide, and his one accuser has died and had serious credibility issues, and all of this is all kept out. It's all kept from the jury. The jury's not allowed to hear all of the facts.
Let me ask you this. In that particular case, has the prosecutor died?
From 1972?
Yeah.
He may have.
Well, I'm only asking that question not out of malice towards the prosecutor, but as a possible reason why they might now consider it. In other words, there seems to be a general trend here or tendency to protect the prosecutors at all costs. And therefore, one reason why this person could be getting a hearing after 40 years might be that the prosecutor is no longer around to be shamed.
And this is one of the biggest problems. Innocence Project and some of the other groups that work very hard on these wrongful conviction cases, after one of the biggest expenses isn't interviewing or DNA testing. It's after they've proven someone innocent. Their biggest single expense and what really drains their treasury is fighting with these prosecutors, sometimes for another 10 or 12 years after they've proven someone innocent. There's a man in Virginia for rape. 12 years ago he was proven innocent by DNA testing. He's been fighting for 12 years, and every time they have to hire attorneys and experts and perform more testing and do more hearings and file more motions, it costs more money and it drains them. And these prosecutors are continuously fighting these families and fighting Innocence Project and other group to drain their resources in the same way that they throw bogus criminal charges out at people. It's to drain the public defender's office.
Sounds like it's time for modern Robin Hoods to go storming the castle keeps.
Oh, there he is. There's Mike.
Now, and you really look at it.
A little boiling oil required.
And we keep seeing, as political bloggers, time after time. You look at Wisconsin and the John Doe investigations against conservatives by ideologically progressive liberals who are just trying to basically silence and intimidate types of folks.
Sorry.
And you do see it's the force of government being used against its citizens for absolutely intimidational purposes.
And it's not always just conservative Republicans. Sometimes it's independents, libertarians, constitutionalists,
right.
people who are not even part of a party, and some people who don't even vote. They're just speaking out.
Yeah.
And now they've known nothing about politics, and now they're getting targeted by prosecutors, even code enforcement officers, tax collectors.
Yeah, and the biggest thing has been the IRS targeting of the Tea Party or constitutional groups, and we've been watching this for over a year. And has anybody been punished? No. All we get is brand new Commissioner Koskinen acting in very snippy ways. How dare you ask me these questions and impugn the reputations of our wonderful public servants, even though when you read the emails, their own emails by their own fingertips, you go, how come they're not in court? I mean, what is with this? And you keep wondering, how much longer are we going to put up with qualified immunity for these people who use government for their own purposes? It's basically shattered the progressive myth of these are non-partisan technocrat experts who have only your best interest at heart running the bureaucracy. I am more scared of the administrative state than anything else, period. Because you see these guys saying, well, this is what our job is. No, that's not what the authorizing legislation told you to do. Oh, but that's okay. It's only our intent. We are getting, as we said earlier, who's obeying the law, who's disregarding the law, who is saying that the rule of law, one of the pillars of our republic, is basically being shattered at its roots. I listen to what you're saying on the criminal justice stuff. Yeah, the stuff in the House, it's politics. We know about that stuff. We just need to put the flashlight on it so other people know. But this other stuff on the criminal justice side, where people do abuse the ability to fight for truth. We all say, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and yet it seems to be nothing but a facade. It's turned into, like politics, it's no longer just a win to be able to get something done. It's just about the winning part. And now in the court system, with what you've been saying, it's not about the win, it's about the punishment part.
I'm going to actually throw this out to you. We're doing like 10-minute segments, not every single week, but like we do a legislative update every week. We do Second Amendment once a month. We do Right to Life once a month. We'll probably do voter fraud once a month. Would you like to do a criminal justice segment, 10 minutes on the phone, once a month with us?
I would love to.
All right, we'll set that up after the show. A lot of things we didn't get to today. We wanted to do some stuff that this is just far better than what I had planned, so that's the way Grok Talk works. We're not going to do the top 20 2014. You can go to granitegrok.com and look that up. We're not going to have a time for a year in review kind of a thing, although I started a list of stories that were interesting to me. Billy Bear, of course, Jasper's election. Gas prices, huge story this year. They've come down a lot because of things that Democrats didn't want.
And where's Gene Shaheen complaining about the speculators driving the cost of gas down?
I know. Jonathan Gruber, of course, Medicaid expansion in New Hampshire, the 2014 elections. We should probably try to get our Whiskey Tango Foxtrot squeezed in. I think we've gotten about 15 or 20 new entrants just over the course of the show, as is the case. We have discussed.
Yeah, and the gas price thing is a double-edged sword, by the way. Actually, it's got three edges that I found so far.
Yeah.
First of all, the lowering of the oil price that drives the gas price is as much done by the Saudis as anybody else. Mm-hmm. Firstly, because they're no friends of Russia or Iran, so it doesn't hurt them if Iran and Russia get hurt. But secondly, it doesn't hurt them if fracking companies go out of business, and the Democrats will be very happy about it too. And there's a serious danger that it will become uneconomical to do fracking, just as the Saudis, I think, helped to drive some of the original Texas wells out of business back in the 70s before they yanked the price up on us. So watch that one very carefully. But in the meantime, we've already got Democrats calling for an increase in the gas tax because, oh my gosh, the revenue decline.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys can afford it because look how low gas prices are.
You'll
never feel it.
This is like tobacco. See, they want gas taxes, but they want everybody to drive electric cars, which means there's no gas taxes. They want nobody to smoke, but they keep raising the tobacco tax. It's the same thing. All these taxes, the income tax, the sales tax, all their taxes are based on things happening that they are opposed to. They don't like economic development. They don't like commerce. They don't like the free market, yet they want to get taxed.
And they don't like profit, and they don't like people earning big wages.
And they don't like tobacco, but they tax it more. They don't like gasoline, but they tax it more. When are people going to realize that Democrats are complete idiots? Just idiots.
So if you go to a vocational school or a trade school, or you get into a trade union, or you get into a professional trade or professional association, or you become a professor or a doctor and you start making some decent money and you start hitting those really high tax brackets, then all of a sudden you're the bad guy because you're complaining about your taxes. You know, you've done all this work. You've driven your way through school. You've driven yourself through vocational school, making that money.
Cold-hearted.
And if you question the lawyers taking 45% contingency fees on injury cases, then you must not care about the injured worker.
That's very
true.
Very well
and
done.
And then, of course, the Affordable Care Act is neither affordable nor will it provide care. It will be more expensive and you'll get less of it.
You get taxed if you offer a Cadillac plan. You get fined if you offer if you don't offer medical insurance. And the fine if you do offer medical insurance but it doesn't meet the federal guidelines for affordable is higher than if you don't provide medical insurance at all. So what are these companies going to do? If the workers,
they're pushing them onto Medicaid in New Hampshire.
Right. And
Thank you, New Hampshire State Republicans.
And they are
Senate Republicans.
And they are turning Medicare for older folks into something more like Medicaid. They're going to be pulling $20 to $30 billion a year out of Medicaid, reducing the payments to doctors and hospitals so that a lot of older folks are going to lose choice, and eventually the Medicare program is going to be evolved into something like Medicaid.
Yeah, in fact, help me out here. There's something particular I've seen in the news lately. The doc fix, which comes up every year, which is basically where the Democrats, through typical wishful unicorn thinking, said we can reduce the cost of Medicaid year by year by simply reducing the amount we pay doctors. And that amount has grown to the point where it's about 43 cents on the dollar, and every year the crisis arrives, and every year they vote to not reduce the payments, which is called the doc fix. But now I read that a very similar amount, 43 cents on the dollar, was an incentive for more doctors to take Medicaid as Obamacare phased in, except it's going away. So I'm asking, is that the same 43 cents as the doc fix, or is it in fact another amount?
It's a different amount. It was a 2-year juicing of the rates that they were paying. Always supposed to be temporary, but it was more of that crack money. Here, take this, you'll like it. And now all of those patients, they're going to get dropped.
Because the doctors are going to say, we can't afford to serve you.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have always been careful to say, we will give you health care insurance. We will give you coverage. It's not the same thing as actually getting care. And I know several people who are on Obamacare that they can't find a doctor. They won't be taken because the rates are even lower under some of those plans than not. So
any town, any company with over 100 employees, but also any town or any school or school district.
Yep.
Well, the town of Seabrook has more than 100 full-time employees. The school district has something like 150 full-time employees. So that means that towns, counties, school districts are going to be hit. It means that states are going to be hit with a Cadillac tax or some other one of the other fines.
Merrimack's looking at $500,000, $500,000 at least.
A bold legislation.
Or is it $500 million? Yeah. It's a lot. It's a huge sum just for public employees.
Rationing anyone? Rationing that word? Rationing?
Just for the fine, and they're changing the private insurance plans as much as they can to make them conform to look like Medicaid. So you still have 47 million people uninsured, as we've had for the last 20 years. However, instead of getting quality private insurance, or at least Medicare, now everyone, older folks are being pushed into a Medicaid-like program. Medicaid patients are being pushed into a worse program. Companies are having to push their employees into cheaper Medicaid-like private insurance programs. So it's almost like universal Medicaid for everyone, the one program that no one wants.
Yeah.
and it's
no doctor
single
wants to
payer.
take.
It's a backdoor to single payer.
All right, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening on iTunes, iHeart, etc., etc., etc. I was totally unprepared because of my computer issue last night. And next week, hopefully, we'll do better. Jason Sorens will be with us next week. And we'll be back next week. Bye.
Yeah, baby!
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results.
how can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
there are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change.
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, or anyone else for that matter.